Hello and welcome back to the next episode of my A320 tutorial. How I fly the aircraft. As per normal, I'm running a bunch of mods and add-ons and other software, and using the A320nx mod by Fly By Wire. A list of the mods I'm using and other programs are listed in the description below. So I'll show you where we are right now. We're in the cruise, and we are currently coming over near Lancaster as we descend over England. We're about to come by Preston and Liverpool and head on down towards the entry point into our arrival, which is the STAR, Standard Terminal Arrival. And that's at the start of the green line. Now, if we go to the STAR and we take a look at it, you'll see this which is that first waypoint that we're going to, has an altitude restriction of 20,000 feet. That altitude restriction is a hard restriction. We can't be above or below it. So that's what we have to aim for. So we have to back up our descent so that we will be down to 20,000 feet by the time we hit there. Now, the vertical navigation system isn't working in the sim yet, so we're going to have to do it manually. Roughly 100 miles will take you 30,000 feet. So in this case, we got to go almost 20,000, 17,000 feet. So we're going to want about 2/3 of that. So I'm going to start that at about 80 miles away. And we can be a little early and just fly along at 20,000 feet, that's fine. So we're going to have to start getting some information together so that we know where we're going and what we are going to be doing. So let's hop into the cockpit. Before I do that though, please consider hitting the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification for more videos. I also live stream on the weekends. It does help a lot. It lets me know what's going on. And if you have any questions about what I'm doing or anything I say, please ask in the comments below. This is to help people and just show how I do it. May not be the best way or the absolute correct way they do it in real life, but this is based on my experience and how I fly this airplane. So let's hop in to the cockpit and we will start getting ourselves established here. So as you can see, we're coming over quite the storm here, which is probably over the Liverpool-Manchester area. This purple, I just realized I left that screen up the entire time I was talking. This purple area here, you can see really bad weather. So we're going to be passing over it. You can see it ahead there. It looks like we come out of it on the other side, at least a little bit anyway. Probably going to be still pretty heavy cloud cover. So what do we need to do now? Well, we got to prep for our descent. So we're going to need the current weather. So we're going to go back down. It shouldn't have changed too much. So we're back down here at the McDo. We're going to go back to the MCDU button, the ATSU, and into the AOC. And just like we did on the first video when we were doing our cockpit prep, we're going to get the current weather for these places here. We don't need Edinburgh, but it's in there, and EGKK is, of course, London Gatwick. So we'll hit send. The message has been sent. We'll go back, and we're going to wait for the company message received indicator to come up over here. That lets us know the ops center has sent us the current weather, and there it is. So the weather is now on board. Oops. Well, messages received. There's the new message with the weather, and hit it there. So the current weather, and we're going to need this information. The winds are 050 at 13 knots. Temperature is 4 degrees, and the QNH is 1001. So I'm going to set the QNH in our standby now. 1001. There we go. And that is set. We've got the other information we're going to need. So we have to put this in our performance page because we have to tell the aircraft what the weather is like where we're going. So we're going to hit the performance button right there. And then we're going to go to next phase, which is the descent. And we're going to hit it again, and that'll take us into the approach phase. So you can see on the left and right there's some information that is missing, and that's what we're going to enter in now. So the QNH is going to be 1001. I'll enter that in. A temperature of 4 degrees, and the winds were 050/13. Transition altitude, it says on the chart it's given by ATC. We'll keep that at 6,000 feet. And our MDA, or decision height. So we are going in on the ILS on this approach. So if we look at the chart, this is the final approach chart. You'll see down here it has the decision height listed in here. So if we're doing a Cat 2 approach, which is a lesser approach, we need 100 feet. Cat 3A is 50 feet, and Cat 3B is an auto land. This aircraft does not auto land in the sim yet, so we won't be doing that. The cloud height was high, so we don't need to go down to 50. So we're going to set a decision height of 100 feet. That would be 100 feet radio altimeter above the ground. Non-precision approach, we would use a decision altitude based on our altimeter, but we can go decision height on this one. So that can go away. We'll go here and go 100, and we can set the decision height in there. So that's all entered in. If we go back to the flight plan, 08 right is our runway. That's already preset, and we're not going to change that. So everything there is great. So as I said, we want to be at 20,000 feet by the time we get to Disset. We're now coming up for 80 miles away, and I said it's about 30,000 feet will take about 100 miles, so we want about a third of that, or 2/3 of that, to go 80 miles, because we're only going down 17,000 feet. So somewhere around the 80 mark would be where we want to go. So we're going to do that now. So we're going to come up, and on the altimeter here, we're going to set 20,000 feet. And we are going to bottom pull it, get the little bottom indicator to come up. And then we are going to set our descent rate at a vertical speed descent of 18,000 feet per minute, or 1,800 feet per minute. We're also going to come over to our speed. We're going to bottom pull it as well. So we're manually controlling our speed now, and we're going to set that to Mach 7.6. That's going to slow the engines down. We don't want to be speeding up. The thing about Mach speed is it varies with altitude. The lower you go in the atmosphere, the higher that speed is. So as we descend, our speed would get carried away with us as the aircraft would be speeding up. We don't want that. It's going to speed up anyway as the air pressure gets denser. So we're going to have to monitor the altitude as we descend. If you're flying under ATC, they would be giving you these descents. They tell you to descend down certain altitudes, and they may tell you just descend, go direct from here to Disset, and you have to be at that 20,000 feet when you descend when ready and get onto the approach. Now we're going to be going into cloud, probably, so I'm going to turn the anti-icing on now because we are going to need it. That is fine. So you can see the approach is starting to come in on the displays. Everything is starting to look good. So we'll take one final look at the approach while we have time, because things are going to get a little bit busy. So Disset, we go to Kidley, that's at 15,000 feet. At Kidley we fly down here to 2 Voss, where our speed is going to slow down to 250. Then we're going to come down here to Holly, 220 on our speed. We have to be at 7,000 feet by Willow. And then we go over to our first section of the approach, which is here. And then Willow, we follow this around, slowly descending down. We leave at 4,000 feet. Then we have to be at 3,000 feet at mid. And we're going to make this turn, intercept the ILS. And then when we intercept the ILS, we then have our approach path of about 3 degrees, or it is 3 degrees down to the runway here. So our missed approach procedure, we're going to fly straight ahead 070, climbing to 3,000 feet, and then when we pass 2,000 feet, we're going to right turn on heading 178, and then as directed by ATC. Shouldn't be an issue today. Everything should work out just fine, he says. Alright, so we're coming down to 30,000. I'm going to increase our descent another to 2,000 feet. And I'm going to come back on the speed. You can see we're increasing a little bit. There we go. So we've got 11,000 feet to go, and we're about 50 miles out from Disset. That's fine. Like I said, you can always fly at 20,000 feet, but you don't want to be above or below that when you come in. And we're about to punch into that cloud layer. We should, as you can see on the weather radar, we should be catching a little bit of the storm and then into a bit of a clearing between two fronts, it looks like. So I always turn on the seatbelt sign when we get into the 20,000s, just to get everybody settled into their seats. So there's 30,000 we're going through, so seatbelts will come on.
Please return to your seat as the seatbelt sign is now on.
There we go. So you can see the clouds. We're starting to get a little bit closer. This won't change anything. Day, night, clouds, or not. The approach flying this route would be the same. Obviously, the winds have to be the same. But it doesn't matter if it's clear skies or cloudy like this. If we're doing this at 12 in the afternoon, at 12 at night, the approach is all going to be the same. So as we descend again, we're watching our speed. The speed's creeping up a little bit, so we're going to bring her back to 6.8 on the Mach, just to maintain that speed. So once we get under, I think it's 26,000 feet, this will switch to knots, and then we're just going to plug it in at 280, and it should hold. If it doesn't hold because we're going down and the aircraft is speeding up, we'll have to use the spoilers to slow the aircraft down. But you can see the purple on the first officer's display there, and that is some bad weather. Normally they may request a vector around it and stuff like that. In the sim, it just adds to the fun. So as I mentioned in the first video, the Gatwick airport we're flying into is a freeware mod available on flightsim.to. It is a fantastic airport, as you will see. That is heads and shoulders above the default. What the guy that does it has done is absolutely amazing, and if you like it when we get there and you like what he's doing, I would highly recommend it. So there you can see our speed is flipped over to 280, so we're going to, or into knots. So we'll set it to 280. And something I noticed that the engines in the mod currently, they tend to slowly spool up on their own, which is a little bit annoying. We'll go to 80 miles on the display now. See, the engines are speeding up there. I don't know why they do that since we're right where we should be. But that starts to increase our airspeed, and you got to play around with it a little bit. We'll be leveling out shortly anyway. Looks like we may just be skimming along the top of these clouds for a little bit. You can get some very scenic, very pretty. Look at, I mean, we're in between cloud layers here. You couldn't do this in the old flight sim. This is absolutely stunning, and some of the lighting effects, sunrise, sunset, it's just phenomenal. I did a flight in Australia, sunrise with the red desert and everything. It was otherworldly. Alright, so you can see our speeds crept up to 300, but we still got a little bit to go, so we're going to level out and it'll slow down a bit. So again, we're just monitoring, making sure everything's doing what we want it to do. You never walk away from the airplane when you're making any sorts of changes. It's okay in cruise, she's not going to do that much. Just follow the route, but when you're doing stuff like this, you can see if you'd walked away that the airspeed cranking like that and the engines up. We don't want that, so I'll just slow them down. There's 20,000 feet coming in, and we're about 19.5 miles from Disset, so we came down a little bit early, but that's fine. So again, everything is set. We'll go back to our performance page. We are in the descent mode. The next phase is the approach mode. It's not active yet, because that when you activate the approach mode, it changes certain features on the airplane, especially speed management and stuff like that. So we're currently in the descent mode. When we want to activate approach mode, we click here and then confirm it, or if we don't do it, the aircraft will eventually do it on its own when it gets closer. I usually do it once I want to bring my speed down to 210 knots. So I'll probably do it as we approach Holly, where I got to be down to 220 as a max. I'll probably go down to 210 in the approach mode in that, and we'll see what happens. So peephole's coming up. Let's go down and look. And there's Disset's flicked over, so we're 14.5 nautical miles away. And if you look over at our clock, you can see it says it will be there in 1.5 minutes. So it's a kind of a way you can judge. If you're, it says you'll be somewhere in 10 minutes and you're descending at 2,000 feet per minute, that's going to be 20,000 feet by the time you get there, right? So you can do these little mental calculations in your head as a guess to where you got to be on descent and stuff. Hopefully eventually it will come in and they will have it, and it'll be something that we can use without too much worry. So it's 23.8 miles from Disset to Kidley. We got to descend 5,000 feet, so that is not going to be an issue. Very slowly leveling off here at 20,000 feet. Not sure why it's taking so long. Normally on takeoff as well, I would have hit the chrono just to get our air time. It's not a big deal. I mean, we are running behind our expected arrival time by about 15 minutes now, but that's because I'm taking longer than I normally would as I explain stuff. But the flight plan does give you an estimated time en route, so you can always use that to gauge how well the planning was and how well it actually worked out. So there's Kidley, so we're going down to 15,000 now. And I'm going to bring the speed back now to 270. we'll get the speed coming down at about 1,500 feet per minute. There we go. Again, those engines trying to run away there. And we're coming up for the clouds, and as you can see once again, the benefits of having the charts, we are showing on the approach plate now, so we can follow it down and see where we are and how far we have to go to various things. It doesn't work on all the charts, especially the parking charts, but for the airport, for taxiing, it works very well, as I showed you before. So it is a very, very, very handy feature. And again, we're going to monitor the airplane all the way down. The flight sim currently has this habit of sending you directly to the runway, which we do not want. We want it to go through all the points on the flight plan. Very quickly, I'm going to go into the radio nav section here. You can see that the beacon, or the ILS frequency is in. It's 110.9, which is perfect. That is what we want. So that's just a way of checking to make sure the correct information is entered in. Here come the clouds. So if we look at the flight plan, and yeah, most of these points aren't entered in here, so this is a major failing, I feel, with this, but we just have to adapt and work around it. Popping in and out of the clouds. 10 miles to go, 1,500 feet to go. And the next one is going to be 7,000. Probably go to about a 1,200 foot per minute descent for that one. Sure do get some pretty looks out the windows here, flying in between these clouds. You can see it on the first officer's display over here, the little gap we're flying into. Alright, there's 15,000 feet. So once we hit 10,000 feet, things are going to start getting a little bit quicker as things happen. And we're going to really have to be monitoring as we go. Alright, so we should be heading to the mid-VOR, which we are 53 miles away. So we're going to go to 7,000 feet. I'm going to do a descent of 1,200 feet per minute. So there's three types of descents you can do in the Airbus. Right now, if we go over to here and take a look, you'll see it says VS. That's vertical speed. So I've set it a vertical speed of minus 1,200 feet per minute. So go down 1,200 feet per minute. You can see us, we're going down here. That is one type of descent, and that'll fly that right into the ground, or at least to the altitude that I've set. There's open descent, in which case the aircraft will descend at the fastest speed possible that it can. So if I was doing this and the ATC came on and said, expedite your descent, like get down there now, I would hit open descent, and it would descend down as fast as it could. I'm going to use speed brakes to do a little control. So I'm going to go about 3/4 on the speed brake to help control our speed so we don't accelerate too fast. I've got the angle set in, so it's going to stick with that angle. So in order to slow down, it'll do its thing. Actually, it's still going up, so I'm going to go to full speed brakes. You need more than you really should to do this, but that's fine. Full speed brake. The third type of descent is the one that is not working, and that is the managed descent. So in the flight computer, under the flight plan, you have all your waypoints that you're flying to as you go through. You should also have speeds and altitudes for those waypoints. So all the points that I've mentioned that have speed restrictions and stuff like that should all have these restrictions in there. And then the aircraft would fly based on those restrictions. And it would calculate the angles that it has to be at all on its own. So when you were ready to descend, you'd just hit the manage descent button and it would fly you down, hitting those points all along the way. It doesn't do that. So that's why we have to do it in this manual type of fashion. So you can see we are struggling with speed control a little bit. Again, we've got everything out, and the engines have decided that they're going to run, and we don't want the engines running. I hope they're looking at that to fix that. Like, the engine should just be an idle, and then just holding us at our speed that we want. So there is a notice on the chart, and it's a standard thing. Under 10,000 feet, we have a speed limit of 250 knots. Reason for that is you have a lot of slower aircraft flying under 10,000 feet, a lot of general aviation aircraft, airplanes taking off, coming in for landing. So you don't want somebody ripping through at a high speed, because ATC won't have time to react to them. The only exception to that is under some circumstances the military do it, but it's very controlled and pre-planned and stuff like that. So it's all stuff you've got to be wary of, and things are going to change when we hit 10,000 feet too. Again, just keeping those engines down in the idle.
We have begun our final descent into London Gatwick. Flight attendants will be passing through the cabin to select any craft one final time. Please ensure tray tables are stowed and seats are in a full upright position. Please also store any carry-on items either in the seat back pocket or under the seat in front of you. Please complete all Wi-Fi related tasks and stow any larger electronics.
Alright, so we're coming up to 10,000 feet, so we're below 10,000 feet. 250 knots is, well, set, but it's doing its own thing a little bit. So the landing lights are going to come on. We're going to put the taxi light on. That actually comes on a little bit later, but I put it on now since I'm up here. Runway, I think it doesn't turn on until you actually drop the gear anyway. Turn off lights, I'd put them on at night. We don't need them because it would be able to see. Everything else is good up there. We're doing an ILS approach, so the landing systems are going to come on both sides, and that will give us our indicators for our localizer and glide speed, our glide slope. Fuel quantity, we're good on fuel. Everything's as per normal, and the balance is checked. Everything is good there. We'd go into the where is it? Fuel page there. We can look at how the fuel is balanced across the tanks and everything like that. Landing gear is confirmed, lever up, flaps are confirmed, retracted, and everything is good there. So our speed is sneaking up again. Bring it down to 250. 1,700 feet to go, 25 miles out. looking very good so far. Again, you can see it says throttles at idle, but they're not really, are they? They're kind of doing their own thing. So our intercept on the ILS is 3,000 feet. So we're going to have to drop 4,000 feet from Willow, which means we're going to go into open descent at that point. Alright, so we're starting to pull out of our descent. See our notice over here is saying that there's no ice detected, but I mean we're right above clouds and the outside temperature is +6. So we are going to leave the anti-ice on because we're about to go down through it. Alright. So we can come off on the speed brakes at the moment. So we're going to level off here at 250. As we do our thing. And again, we would be listening to the ATC. They would be getting directions on what's happening and what's going on. So you'll notice down here the magenta has appeared, and that is the localizer coming in on the scope. And if you look at your chart, if we very quickly bring this up, here's your frequency, and you see it says IGG underneath. If we go back and look at our display, it's showing IGG. So it's the correct beacon, and it gives us a distance of 25.2 miles away. So this has decided it's going to change course on us, which is not what we want. We should be going to the Midhurst VOR, but it's now said, no, you're going to Astra. But it's not actually turned us towards Astra, so this is where sometimes you got to start doing this by hand. It's kind of what we're going to do. Again, very scenic as we skim across the tops of the clouds here. Cloud surfing, as some people call it. So the 7,000 feet stands, this is where we're going to stay. We're just going to be slowing down as we go. And again, we're staying at 7,000 feet because we have a couple of airports in the area with aircraft taking off and landing, so we want to be above them. They're going to stay down at 6,000 feet, and they don't go above 6,000 until they're well out from the London area. So we're going to be coming in above that until we're ready to descend in for the actual runway that we're landing on. Very well coordinated area. It is extremely busy here. So we have a 250 knot limit coming up, which is fine. Once we make that turn, we'll be heading towards Hawley, and that is at a heading of 116 degrees. At which point we'll begin slowing the aircraft down slowly. So the airport is actually off over in that direction. You can see we're now above the glide slope, which is true, we are. And it's not a concern at the moment because we still have to go around and do our turns to come in and get ready to go. So we're almost there. So we're going to go to 116 degrees. quite. Let's go to there and put it on the line and see what we get. We do got to deal with this wind. We got a slight wind, although it's only 6 knots, so not too worried about it. Alright, so we're going to go down here. So we're now heading towards Holly, 7,000 feet.